Hey everyone, welcome to the Brightline Podcast, where we talk about investment real estate, business, and many other interesting topics. Brought to you by Brightline Property Management. Brightline Property Management is a professional single-family home management company located in the Woodlands, Texas, serving the northern Houston area. Additionally brought to you by Rentalizer, the MLS-driven investment home analyzer. Sign up today at rentalizer.com. The Brightline Podcast is produced at Studio 110 in the Woodlands, Texas, the premier podcast studio in the Woodlands. Thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoy our show. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Brightline Podcast. I'm your host, Morgan Cole, and I have today a guest named Cole Lehmann. Cole is a co-host on the show with me here, but today he's also going to be a guest. And we're going to be discussing some experiences that he had with a rental house that he had before he started working at Brightline Property Management, and some of the things that didn't go right because he wasn't a real estate agent. He wasn't quite knowledgeable about property management, and I think it was extremely good learning lesson for Cole. But I think it could also be a really good learning lesson for a lot of our listeners who may be attempting to manage their houses by themselves or considering buying something and not really being in the know. So,
Yeah, it was an unfortunate experience, but learned a lot from it. And I think a lot of the way that we do things here are from our experiences, from our good and bad experiences. So
yeah, absolutely. A lot of policies that are created here are either from things that have happened to me or someone else that I know, or something that, we find out why something happened or how it happened, why it happened, and figure out how to make it not happen again.
Yeah, exactly. So hopefully our clients can learn from our mistakes and benefit from our failure, so to speak. We bought a house in October of 2016.
Okay.
I'll give you a quick little timeline of it. And so we bought it in 2016 in October. I had a tenant in it by the beginning of December.
Pretty quick.
Of 2016. So that was great. Everything was going good. Long story short, she was evicted in February of 2018. And there were a lot of things that happened in between.
14 months, basically? 13 months? Something like that?
14. Yeah, somewhere around there. I get the dates mixed up. I've tried to kind of block it out as far as the timing and everything. But yeah, I learned a lot. Unfortunately, it cost me a little bit of money, a lot of time, but looking back at it, I've improved and gone from not knowing anything to being pretty competent and pretty confident in property management. So
okay, good. Cole, I think really what we need to do is just kind of set the stage here for what it is that made you decide to get this house and ultimately led to you putting it on the market for lease, how you marketed it for lease, how you chose the right tenant, and then let's get the person in there before we talked about what happened.
Yeah. So my dad and I decided to get a rental house in the Woodlands, and our idea was that we had some time on our hands, and where I was at professionally with my job and stuff like that, I had time to find houses and do that. So I did not have my license. I did not have, any certifications or anything like that. I didn't know much about real estate other than what I had been taught on the streets, so to speak.
The tough streets of real estate education.
Yeah, especially in the Woodlands. But yeah, so we bought a home. We found one through an agent that we were using at the time, and we decided that we would put it online, and we put it on. We did not put it on the MLS. We did not put it on HAR, but we did put it on Zillow. And a few of the other third-party sites. So
hold on. If you had a real estate agent, why did you not put it on HAR?
So we wanted to forego the commission. We wanted to try and save some money and try and get a tenant in there ourselves. And that's where we learned that you should probably hire a professional to let the professional do their job.
You did use a real estate agent to buy the house.
Correct. Yeah.
But you did not choose to utilize this person to tenant the house.
Right. So I threw it on Zillow, and I just kind of went in and did my comp search, so to speak, off of what little information I could find, because again, I was not an agent, so I didn't have any of the information that an MLS subscriber would have. So now I do it totally different.
You're an MLS subscriber.
I'm an MLS subscriber. I've been taught. I know I've done, at this point, hundreds and hundreds of CMAs.
Yeah.
So I have a better idea of what to do and what to look for and how to compare them and that sort of stuff. So I did not do my due diligence, and I don't think I rented it out high enough, which cost us a little money.
So trying to avoid a commission at the beginning ultimately led to you renting it out for less money than you believe you should have, now that you know what you could go back and do a CMA for that time period, and you could easily verify you know what it could have rented for.
Yeah, I would say probably somewhere between $100 and $200 a month.
That low.
Yeah.
And what was the rental rate that you rented it for?
It was either, I think it was $1,350 or $1,300.
So I mean, if you think about it, this is like 6.5 months, or if it was $200,
right?
It wouldn't take very long to recover a leasing commission.
Yeah, I mean, $200 at a year lease per month is $2,400. So yeah, 7 months you would have gotten it back. And
additionally, depending on who the agent was or what services they were offering you, you might not have had this particular tenant move in.
Correct. They would have probably helped me, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
Don't foreshadow too much, but we'll get to. But yeah, so we got the house, we got it on the market, and we had a lady email me saying that her daughter was looking for a place. She works around the corner. Could we come by and see the house? I said, of course. So showed them the house. They said, all right, that's great. We'd like to do it. How do I apply? And I didn't know what apply meant, apparently. Back then.
You thought apply was tell me your name and give me your money.
Right. Yeah. And so that leads us into my first big mistake was not doing the tenant selection, which I essentially did not do. I met with her and I talked with her and I figured out she had a job, and she told me how much she makes. I don't remember what it was. I can't imagine it was the 3.5 times the monthly rent that we require.
Yeah.
As far as the Brightline selection goes, but so I knew she had a job. I didn't know how much she made. I had no proof of what she made other than
you didn't verify her income.
No, so I didn't do any background checks.
Did she was she living in a rental home, apartment, or renting something prior to moving into your house?
So she was living with her parents.
Is what she didn't have any actual like rental experience.
I wouldn't know.
You didn't check.
I didn't check. I did not check. So
okay.
Again, this is a little bit of an embarrassing podcast because I've grown so much. I check everybody now.
Right.
Probably. No, not probably. I checked, I think, the right amount, but the right amount is to check everything and make sure you're really doing your due diligence for your investors. So
absolutely it is.
Yeah. So I didn't do any employment or background check, income verification, no rental history. Those are the 4 things that we do religiously here.
Yeah.
And for good reason. So she moves in. She gets it. She pays her deposit. Great. I did do 1 month rent, so I did have a deposit, which was great, and I set it aside. I knew to do that and put it in the right account. So I didn't do everything wrong, but
okay.
I did about 90% wrong. So
okay.
So yeah, she moves in like December of 2016.
Okay.
And one of the things that we worked with her was that she would clean the house and she would paint the house. She would hire a painter, and I would provide the paint.
And just to, maybe give you a little bit of a benefit of the doubt, I don't know, were you actively marketing it at the point that she approached you and said that she wanted to move in?
Yeah.
Then why wasn't the house ready?
I just didn't think about it. It was something, honestly, I didn't think it was going to rent that quick.
Yeah. Okay. So it happened faster than you thought.
Right.
So you hadn't had a chance to really clean it and determine what improvement, painting or any other, cosmetic upgrades you might be going to do to make it ready.
Yeah. Our idea with the house was, hey, we're going to buy it and we're going to put it on the market immediately.
Okay.
And that's what we did. And that was great. And we rented it out so quick. But I think part of the reason was that it was priced too low.
Yeah.
And so we had, the first applicant or first person to talk to me about it applies, and which is great. When it's priced right, it should, it shouldn't take forever to find a house or find a tenant rather. But so yeah, she moves in, and what the agreement was that we were going to discount $1,000 off her rent for her to clean it and paint the house.
Okay.
And so the agreement that I made, and I wrote it into the lease, was that for the first 4 months, she would have a rent discount of $250 per month.
Okay.
Equaling $1,000, and she would clean the house. She would paint it, and she would have her painters from her work come and paint it, and I would provide the paint.
Was she in some sort of a maintenance industry?
She worked at it was like a museum or something where they had a maintenance guy that could. I don't know. I don't think it was a professional painter. I think it was, could have just been a friend that she used. That
I'm almost disappointed that you don't know where she worked, because that means you really means you didn't check.
I did not do the background checks I should have. But
okay, you've definitely established that you did.
I've learned that.
You did not check this out.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she moves in. She does it. She pays the first month's rent, and the water heater when she moves in is not working. Okay. Maintenance issues like this you can't avoid.
Sure.
Right? It happens.
You don't live there.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. And so I say, okay, no problem. I go over there. I try to fix it. I light the pilot light.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I had fixed it with the pilot light. It turned on. You can hear it, and it's moving and all that. So she comes back. She says, hey, it's still not working. Oh, hold on. My dad fixed it. And I said, are you sure that he fixed it? Because I've already, she's like, yeah, it was just the pilot light went out.
Unless her dad sanded down the flame sensor, he did not fix it.
So what really happened was the thermocoupler was out.
Okay.
And this specific unit was a nice unit. It was an A.O. Smith, but it had a specific thermocoupler that I had to drive down to Stafford to get.
Okay. If you wanted it that day.
Right. And so me being a new landlord and trying to make her happy, I drive down to Stafford, which is about an hour and a half from us.
Gosh.
Find it at an Ace Hardware. So I think it was $125. I come back, I put it in.
How did you locate this at an Ace Hardware?
I looked up the water heater, and then I found out the product number of the water heater, and then I found out the thermocoupler product number, and then I just got online, and it took me probably about an hour to track it down. And Lowe's doesn't have it, and Home Depot doesn't have it because I don't know. That would be too easy. So I find out that Ace Hardware holds it.
Okay.
And so the one in the Woodlands doesn't have it. They're out.
Okay.
One in Spring, the nearest one is Stafford. So I drive down there and I get it. I drive back. So now I'm about 5 hours into this ordeal. And I go over to her house and I install it. I'm pretty confident I have the gas and everything the right way, but I'm freaking out because it's gas, and you hear all the horror stories of water heaters going through a roof and that sort of stuff. So I call the gas company and I say, hey, I can smell gas.
Oh my gosh.
And so they come out and they check it, of course, because that's what they do and that's what you pay them for.
Yeah.
And so they come out and everything was fine. I think he tightened one little nut, and so.
Man, I'm gonna have the gas company install my water heater next time.
Yeah.
It sounds like the cheapest way to do it.
Yeah. I wish they would have installed it, because it probably took me an hour or 2 hours to install it and make sure it was done the right way. Then I finally had the guts to light it and do all of that. So
boom.
Yeah. That crossed my mind a lot. So anyway, we get it in, we get it working. It's great, whatever. December she pays rent. January she does not. And so I call her and I'm like, hey, what's up? Why haven't you paid it? She goes, well, the house was a lot dirtier than I thought it was, and the whole water heater issue. I didn't have hot water for like 10 days and blah blah blah. She didn't move in the first 10 days. The day she moved in, I was like, I did everything I could, this and that. I said, all right, what we'll do, and again, this is dumb. I said, I will give you the free month, but what we're going to do is tack on a month on the rent or on the lease.
So she's still paying you for the same quantity of months, but we're changing the timing.
So she's going to pay me for 12, and she's going to get there for 13. So
okay.
Obviously, looking back, I don't think she had the cash. It was around Christmas, New Year's, so you spend a lot.
Get right out of town.
Yeah.
Okay.
So right out of the gate, this is not great. So in the meantime,
did she ask you to break up the deposit?
No, she did not. She had enough cash to put the deposit and the first month.
I've had a lot of people, and I think that you've seen people ask you the same thing, where they're like, oh, hey, would you guys consider, splitting up the deposit over 2 months or 3 months or 4 months? And
That's a hard no.
that's a hard no, because usually I'm like, if you don't have the money to move in, you're not going to have the money to keep paying me. And
Right.
the reason we get the deposit is to protect us against certain situations,
Yep.
including your inability to pay.
Yeah.
So how am I protecting myself if I move you into a house and I don't even have a deposit, or I have a quarter of a deposit?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so I was just curious about that, because that could have been a little bit of foreshadowing to the situation if she had said, can I split up the deposit? But she didn't.
No, she didn't, and she paid everything right up. She paid her deposit when she needed to, and paid her first month's rent right when she needed to. So everything looked fine before she moved in. And then when she did move in, once she did move in and she cleaned it and did all that, I kind of understood, like, oh, she did a little bit of cleaning, this and that. I was like, I gave you the $1,000 off of rent and blah blah. So I, soft spot, lesson learned kind of
Yeah.
thing. But fast forward about 4 months, she's making some payments and things are good. And then I think it was like May or June, and she misses her first rent payment.
Okay.
Outside
of the original one that we're
outside.
not going to really call that
second payment.
missing a payment, because you agreed.
I agreed, and she missed the payment, which led to me agreeing. So
all right, so I have my timeline here with you. So, what about the late notice though?
So the late notice is the first time. It's either April or May, whatever it was.
Okay,
that was the first time. So
okay.
But in October and September and October and November of 2016, I'm in the process of getting my license. So I'm learning these things in the classes.
And as a brand new real estate agent taking real estate classes, you're obviously a genius when it comes to matters of tenants and property management and all of that.
Filling out leases, just go online. That's what I did. I went online. I got a lease, which is actually important. I did not use the state promulgated form.
Well, hold on. It's not a promulgated lease document.
Is it not?
It is not.
It's a contract.
It's a TAR lease, Texas Association of Realtors.
Oh.
TAR forms are not promulgated. TREC forms, when applicable, are promulgated.
Gotcha.
So I hate to call you out on that on the air here.
That's why he's a broker and I'm not yet. So,
but it's okay. I hear you wouldn't believe how many people blend their memory of what is a TREC form and what is not a TREC form, and which ones are mandatory and which ones are not. But most, by far, people do use the TAR, Texas Association of Realtors residential lease agreement.
Yes, and that is what we use right now.
Here now, we use that one right now. I've used lawyered up forms before, but we have some addendums we put on that TAR form that really make it work great.
Yeah.
But so enough about us.
I'm in the process of getting my license. I have to take my exam in March of 2017, and so I passed my exam. April hits and she stopped. She doesn't make her first. She misses her first or second month's payment, and so I start talking to her and I'm starting to tally up the late notices or the late fees and the daily late fees and that sort of stuff. And then in June I joined the team here.
Yep. Okay.
So I was with Coldwell Banker for a few months, and then the opportunity presented itself to come here, which is great because I wanted to get into investment homes more so than just your classic agent.
Sure.
And so when you and that was probably right about the time where Rentalizer was starting to be.
It was in my head.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So
I think you're absolutely right. That would have been.
I remember talking about it when I first came over here.
Middle of 17, I would have been thinking about it, and then we started the development of it in the first month of January. So yeah, you bet.
So I wish I would have had that, to be honest with you, because I would have had a better idea of maintenance costs and rental costs, and every cost that's associated with a rental house that at this point in time today is beat into my brain.
Yeah.
So. I can regurgitate it, no problem. But June I join here. I'm having to go back and forth with her a lot on rent payments, and she made a couple partial payments, I think, and then she gets caught up, and then she gets behind, and she gets caught up, she gets behind, and so finally November of 2017, I go to file for eviction.
Okay.
And I worked with everybody in here to make sure I did it right. I remember bringing the contract into your office, and you're like, okay, a lot of this looks good, but Right now I think you had, I don't remember what the number was, $800 in late fees or $1,000 in late fees, and you're like, and really you can only charge $200. And the reason was I didn't have an allocation of payment, which is in the TAR lease, which was not in mine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what is the allocation of payment?
So the allocation of payment,
allocation order, I think is the allocation order.
Is where the money goes and when.
Okay.
So if everything is good and your $1,000 per month rental price or cost or whatever, and they pay $1,000, it goes to rent.
Yep.
If they have a $100 late fee on there, so now their balance is $1,100 and they pay only $1,000. The first 100 goes to the late fee. And the last 900 goes to the rent.
And why is that?
I can tell you exactly why it's important. Because you can only evict for non-payment of rent.
That's exactly right, Cole.
So
welcome to being a professional property manager.
Yep. So I found out.
And hold on. So explain to us. You may be about to give us an example, but be sure and explain to us why that is. I would say it's important for your situation because your inability to collect.
Right.
And it's important for our situation because we need to be sure that if someone does decide to skip out on paying the other fees, that they are actually truly in default of their lease for reasons that we can also evict.
Correct. So our goal as the manager of the property is to protect our investors' investment.
Yeah.
And if we cannot gain possession of the investment because of a loophole on a poorly worded lease or form or contract or whatever, that's not good. So we've learned from my mistakes, and I don't know about if you've experienced that exact mistake or not, but from our collective mistakes as a company that, hey, we have an allocation order in there for this exact reason.
Well, I guarantee you the first time I went to court, I said, Your Honor, this person owes me, I don't even know how many months of rent because I didn't do it 2 weeks after they didn't pay back then. And I'd say they owe me 3 months of rent. And, I tried to be best friends with this person and make everything work out, but it turns out it didn't. And they owe $1,500 a month. They owe $4,500 in rent, plus they owe me $1,000 in late fees. And I was using a TAR lease.
Yeah.
And I was using a form that said that I could charge daily late fees. And the judge says, well, son, we will not give you a judgment for late fees. So I'll award you the rent, the back owed rent, and I'll also award you the court costs. And at the end of the day, we know that if they weren't paying their rent, they're probably not going to pay us, at least not on the spot. I mean, we send them to collection agency, and that sometimes works out. But
you were able to,
yeah.
And I will tell you why I was not able to later on.
Okay, but the moral, the punchline of this one is, if someone does skip out on a $100, if they owe you $1,000 rent and they had a $100 late fee and they don't pay the $100 late fee and they pay you $1,000 in rent, they've actually paid you a $100 late fee and they've paid you $900 in rent, leaving $100 of rent unpaid.
Yep.
And can you evict someone for unpaid rent?
Yes.
There you go.
Yep.
Okay. So now back to.
So her late fees through the course of the year were not being paid, and so the balance is just adding up, right? So finally in November she doesn't pay the rent. She doesn't make any payment.
No payment.
So I finally, by the guidance of Brightline, I was told, hey, this is what you need to do, and this is how you need to do it. And so I did it. I filed for the eviction. I got a call from her 2 days later. Whenever the
wait a second, you mean that she figured out you were serious?
She did. And
I can't believe it. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, apparently when a cop shows up on your dorm and tapes a eviction notice to your.
So she didn't respond to the notice that the statement that she owed rent, and she didn't respond to you telling her she owed rent, and she didn't respond to the late.
So we
notices.
Send her. So on the 6th of every month, Brightline has a very good policy of sending out a certified mail with a 5-day notice to pay or quit.
Yeah.
And that's certified, so we know they got it. If they don't get it, it comes back to us. And then at that point, we hand deliver it. Mm-hmm. We take it to them and figure it out.
It's considered delivered when we send it.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, we want them to understand.
Right.
We
yeah.
Still get
so we
them.
communicate with them, and I think I had emailed her the form or something like that, because I do remember getting an email, a lengthy one about why she hasn't been able to pay and this and that, and we do our best to work with them, but at the end of the day, you have to pay your rent.
We don't want people to move out.
We don't.
We don't want to evict them.
It's a headache for everybody.
And now if you fast forward a little bit, excusing this tenant here, generally speaking, if it does come to that we're sending a notice to vacate, my experience has been that a lot less than 1 out of 10 of those actually wind up being evicted.
Yeah, I would agree.
Usually,
I think I caught the outlier, so to speak.
You did, and it was because you had a tenant who wasn't qualified to live in the house to begin with.
Yeah.
But the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Sure.
And if you become the squeaky wheel, you're gonna get the grease. And the credit card company or your car company or whoever else that are not threatening to remove you from your home,
right,
are gonna get ignored when your tenant is in a cash flow crunch.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to live without a car than it is to live without a house.
How big is the car?
So yeah, the late fees are adding up. Finally, November 2017 comes and we can file for eviction. We send her the notice and do all the correct steps. And she finally reaches out to me. That was one thing that really frustrated me, is that she never reached out to me.
Didn't communicate.
It was me having to chase her down. So unfortunately, that's on a tenant by tenant basis. You can't, some are better at it than others, but so she comes to me and says, hey, I want to zero out my balance and I want to avoid this eviction. Can I pay you a little bit of it to push it back or whatever?
So just to you had how many, more than 1 month?
No, it was 1 month, but it was also the late fees.
Yeah.
And so I don't remember the exact agreement that we made, but I said, if I can get a payment of X amount of dollars,
not the full amount.
This was in October. As I'm kind of talking with her before I officially file, I said, if you can make a payment, we're doing our best to work with them, because again, no one wants to be evicted and no one wants to evict somebody. It's not fun.
Yeah, no.
Everybody loses. It's a classic lose.
Michael Scott would not call that a win-win-win.
No. I win for her.
Yeah.
So yeah, she pays a little bit. November comes. I'm just done. I'm tired of it. I either need the house back or I need the payment. I'm losing money on this house. We have payments and we have maintenance costs and we have all these things. Taxes are due in January of 2018, and we're losing money on this house. And
let me ask you this is a little bit of a complicated question, but I think you probably know this by now. Why, when you have already filed to evict someone, is it important to not accept a partial payment?
Because you need to start the eviction process over again.
You have to re-notify them.
Correct.
If someone owed you $1,000 and you sent them a notice to vacate that said you owe $1,000,
yeah,
and then you went to court and you filed for $1,000, and then they came by your office and gave you $1,
and you accepted
it, it would actually be unlawful to proceed with the eviction because the facts of the eviction suit are no longer accurate.
Correct.
And so I have made that mistake for sure.
Yeah.
So I do not anymore. It's been several years. I mean, that's one of those things that you will do that once.
Yeah. You just have to experience it, or somebody in your office has to experience it.
Yeah.
And basically put a procedure in place, and we have one. When they get behind by a certain amount or on a certain day, we no longer accept payment from them. And
absolutely.
The only payment we will accept is a certified funds, either cashier's check or bank check.
Full payment.
Of the full amount.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she doesn't do it in, leading up to November, we finally file. And I said, okay, look, if you want this eviction to go away, we need certified funds in the full amount.
Yeah. And
I said, if you want to, your lease ends in January of 2018. So, if you can pay November and December, because at this point it's, getting towards December, she's going to have another $1,300 or whatever it was to pay for rent. And so long story short, she pays it.
Okay.
And when she pays it, she says, I would like to sign an extension for 6 months.
I remember this, and I thought it was so bizarre.
It was weird. And, I think at this point, my thought process and just kind of talking to people in the office was, okay, she's trying to get her life back in order. I want to be, the nice guy, so to speak, and help her out if I can.
Yeah.
So I say, okay, look, Maggie, that's fine. But what we're going to do, since I have this terrible online lease, We are going to void that, and we are going to set it up with a TAR lease.
Yeah.
And we're going to roll over the deposit, and we're going to do it the right way. So now I have, the allocation order in place, and I have the late payments in place.
The daily late fee.
And the daily late fees. So that was the big thing is with the online form that I used, which it was a legal document, and it was valid, and
you bet.
It was valid and enforceable, to use a legal term for. It did not have certain things in it, and it didn't have daily late fees set up correctly in it. I'm sure you could word it to do it right. I did not, because again, I was in school, so I knew everything. Right?
Of course.
And so the issue there was that and you pointed this out in the summer, that I was allowed to charge a one-time late fee, and that was it. I thought I had it in there correctly. I did not.
Yeah.
And so I would lose out. She would pay, I think it was $50 and then $20 a day after every day thereafter.
On the new lease?
No, on the original. That's how I thought I had it set up.
Oh,
but
yeah.
All I had was just the $50. So
right.
That adds up. When she's 14 days late, 15 days late, that's another $120, $140, $160 over, every time.
It's also a little incentive to pay.
Yeah.
It's money in your pocket, and it's trying to prevent money from going out of her pocket. And that's a very extreme motivator when you have that clock running.
Yeah. So she agrees to do the new lease, and we set it up, and we do it the right way to where the late fees and daily late fees are in there, and everything's set up correctly. And I'm giving her a second chance. I know it's not. I had a feeling that it was not going to work out. So it wasn't a good feeling. It was just I got this feeling that it's not going to work out, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to give you a second chance, and hopefully it works out. You can start a new job or whatever, because that was part of it. She was in between jobs and this and that. So I was like, okay, I'm going to give you a second chance. And in my head, I'm like, this is going to end horribly.
Yeah.
And it did.
Yeah.
So we signed that in December. January comes along, and we file for eviction again.
I can't even believe 1 month goes by. I mean, I guess in her mind, she thought she could make it work, which congratulations to her. But good news for you is you had the right lease in place.
Right. So, and it may have been 2 months. Again, my times are not 100% accurate. So we end up filing again, and she gets the notice. She calls me, and she was like, I'll try and make this payment, that payment. And I finally said, I just want the house back. I have bent over backwards for you for a year now. You continue to not pay rent, and you continue to have a reason for everything.
Yep.
And I'm sorry, at this point, I am losing money.
Mm-hmm.
So we go to court. Of course, we're awarded the suit. And she is given, I think the judge gave her like 14 days.
Okay.
So for people who have never done an eviction suit,
that's longer than.
So the times I go, I hear the judge say you have to be out by the end of the month a lot. And usually the way that ours are set up is on the 6th we send the 5-day notice. On the 11th we file, and typically it's 10 days. So it's usually around the 20th or so that we go to court. So 20th, 25th, somewhere in that range. Yeah. And so typically he gives them about a week or 7 days or something like that. For whatever reason, he gave them 14 or 15 days, which at that point I just want the house back. I was happy to be awarded that.
Yeah.
So she moves out. She turns over possession of the house. I have to change the locks, which is a state law.
Yep.
Which is
part of the Texas Property Code.
That's right. So I take possession in around April of 2018.
Okay.
And when I go in the house, of course, it wasn't trashed. I will give her credit where credit is due. It was not completely trashed out. There was a lot of stuff still in there.
Yeah. Okay.
And it wasn't necessarily trash. It was just stuff that, she's being evicted. She has to leave it behind.
Yeah. Okay.
So the reason that's important, because now that's more work for me and more time for me to spend on the house and more money for me to spend. I had to go get a trailer. And I think I hired someone to come help move out the big stuff and put it in the trailer. And then
this is just not something you should have to be dealing with.
No.
I mean, she leased your house from you. You gave it to her in a condition that was known. She said, I'll clean it and I will paint it in exchange for money.
Right.
And so at that point, it essentially becomes, okay, you need to return this house to me in our essentially modified condition that I'm paying you to accomplish. Right. And then she gives it back to you a couple of months of rent unpaid later, in shambles. I mean, not horrible. She didn't light the thing on fire, but you should be able to literally move in and live there when she moves out. Right.
So obviously I'll never give a house in not move-in condition.
Yeah.
If there's, a blind is busted and we can write it into the lease or something like, the owner will replace the blind in the living room or whatever. That's not the end of the world, but it's going to be cleaned. Any major job, and I'd say $1,000 is a major job.
Yeah.
Is going to be done already before they move in, before the lease is signed.
Yeah.
That would be more of a make ready kind of thing. So I learned that. I learned to use the right lease. Over the course of this year, we had a second property that we were flipping and getting ready to rent. And I had a friend who was in Aggie, and he was on an Aggie sports board, find a tenant that was moving from out of state.
Okay.
For this other house.
Okay.
And so the timing actually worked out really well when I took possession of the first house. And I was able to rent it, but I did my background checks and I did my income checks and I did all my checks, and the house was in move-in condition, and
it was as it should have been.
Exactly. Yeah.
And how long has the new lease tenant? 1 year basically?
It'll be 1 year, and she took on, I think, March 1st.
So you're almost
April 1st. Sorry.
Okay, so you're 10 months or so into this new arrangement here, and you had the other arrangement for, let's call it 14 months.
Correct.
So how has the apples to apples first 10 months versus first 10 months gone of knowing what to do and how to do it?
Night and day. Dollar to dollar, it's probably, I've collected 100% of the rent.
On time.
And if there's ever been any remote, any idea of, I might be a little late or this or that, she's in our system here at Brightline, and so she can call and communicate, and she can talk to the girls in the office or me or you or whoever. And everybody in this office has everything right in front of them, and so they can say, okay, that's fine. You've been perfect with payments.
It's all documented in our software.
Exactly. You've been perfect. So if you're 3 days late, okay, we can forgive that.
Yeah, we'll do a one-time forgivable usually for somebody.
But I guess my point is that they have everything in front of them, and they have the history. With the first house, I was having to go back and look at bank statements, and I was having to go back and look at, okay, well, it looks like, I got a big deposit here, but then I didn't get another one from her until...
You didn't have a way to really account for it. Was she direct depositing the money into your account?
No, I found an online... She was writing me a check for the first few months, and then I found a way for her to do automatic payments, which was part of her thing. It was like, oh, well, it's just so hard for me to pay. I'm like, lady, I literally live 200 yards away from you. I lived around the corner. I was like, I am not that far from you. We can, if you have the issues that she didn't have the money. So, but yeah.
Her definition of hard to pay might be different than your definition of hard to pay.
That is fair. So, but yeah, so we evicted her, and her balance to this day, not including the remainder of the lease, is over $3,000.
Over $3,000 while she lived there.
Right.
And so...
and that's taking her deposit and applying it to all of that. So
now, usually, nowadays, we would just send that to a collection agency if that had happened to us.
Right.
I don't even remember the last time that somebody moved into one of our houses and left with the balance like that. But if they did, we would send it to a collection agency.
Right.
So, Cole, I got to ask you, why didn't you send that to a collection agency?
So I didn't do it right. Is the moral of the story? If you guys don't get anything other than this, I'm looking directly at the camera. I didn't do it right. Okay. Brightline does it the right way, and I did not collect the information I need to send it to collections.
Okay.
I have her name. I have a phone number, which I'm assuming is hers.
There's a 0% chance that phone is still active.
It's pretty unlikely.
Yeah.
But I don't have, I don't have driver's license number. I don't have social security numbers. I don't have any of that.
Birth?
I think I have a date of birth in there.
Okay.
I do have a date of birth, and it's because we put it on the new form, the new lease.
Got it. Okay.
So, and I wish I would have gotten the Social Security from
At
her.
that time.
Yeah, I should have. But yeah, so I took possession, and I cannot send to collections. I mean, I could send it to them and
They
give
couldn't
them.
do anything.
It's about as likely. It's the same odds that her phone is still turned on that collections could collect.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Wow. Well, okay. So, the good news is that I think part of the good news is that you came on board when you did, because otherwise you might have been making deals every 3 months to give her a month free for 2 years until you mustered up the courage to say you're gone.
Right, or I knew how to do it. I didn't know the eviction process. I didn't know what I would need to do. I didn't know that it cost money to file.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was $120 just to file and get a court date with them.
Right.
Which, that's a cost that we ultimately pass on. But
sure.
I wouldn't have known what to do. I probably would have been calling you saying, "Hey, I'm in this situation," and you would have laughed and said, "All right, we'll do X, Y, and Z." But
right.
But yeah, so I've certainly learned background checks and our selection criteria, which is on our website. For the world.
And by the way, it's not like people don't wind up moving into our houses. We don't have so strict of criteria that you can't qualify. We just make sure that the appropriately qualified person moves into the house that is the right, cost bracket for them.
Yes. Yeah. And I think one of our sayings is, we're here to collect rent, not collect fees or evict people.
Yeah.
We're here to manage homes, and we want to, we're a matchmaker. We want to match the right tenant to the right house.
Right.
And when we do that well, they stay and they're happy and they pay, and the owner's happy. And when a maintenance costs come up, they're not afraid to come talk to us because they're in good standing with us.
Yeah. That's actually a really good point you brought up. I mean, we've had situations where someone might not be in our good graces, and therefore they don't bring a maintenance issue up to us.
Yeah, she did that. And then she did that, and she tried to bring it up at the end of the lease.
And say that, of course, it was...
Yeah. I'm having to live in, the stove's busted or whatever the issue was.
No one's forcing you to live there. And the lease also says that if the rent's not paid, you don't have to make the repairs. I went to court. I'll never forget this one time I was in court, and I love listening to all the other people's situations. That's kind of fun sometimes.
It's like a cable show.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
But it was me. It was my situation. I was representing the landlord, evicting somebody, and of course, this person who hadn't paid a couple of months' rent at the point that we had our court date brought like these. Have you ever heard the song by Arlo Guthrie called "Alice's Restaurant Massacre"?
No.
All right. Well, there's just this funny thing about all these glossy 8x10 color photos and everything, but the man brings these stack of photos that he took. He actually got them developed. I was like, God, how did you even get these out of your phone and onto pieces of paper? But anyway, he's standing there with all these photos, and he talks for a prolonged period of time describing how there was water issues in the bathroom and some mold and all kinds of stuff, and it was just horrible living conditions.
He's telling the judge
because the judge says, why are you here? And I say, well, Your Honor, my name is Morgan Cole. I represent blah blah blah. This is Joe Jones. He hasn't paid. The last time he paid rent was 2 months ago. He paid blank amount of money by blank. We gave him certified notice to vacate on blank date. Blah 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 blah.
Right.
I'm here seeking possession of the house and a judgment for $3,000 plus court costs. And then the judge looks at Joe Jones and says, well, Joe, you have, a reason why you haven't paid your rent?
Right.
And then, word vomit. And the guy just talks about how horrible the house is and all this kind of stuff. And the guy just went on and on and on. The judge said, listen, I let you talk for a while because I was being polite, but you haven't paid your rent and you cannot stay there anymore. You have 3 days to move.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, like, A, I can't believe you let that guy talk that long. And B, you didn't pay your rent.
Open and shut case, Johnson.
Yeah, it's over. Like, no pay, no stay.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's one of the wonderful things about Texas, or if it's just how the world works.
I've when I was going through all this, I was trying to figure out what the process was and that sort of thing. And what I learned was Texas is very landlord friendly.
They are, absolutely. And I don't know what state. There must be a state where if you said all of those things, the judge would say, well, landlord, why didn't you fix this? And the landlord would have to say, well, Your Honor, I've been trying to talk to this guy every day for the last 75 days, and he won't talk to me. And so he's not even communicating with me that he has this problem because he's scared to tell me about the problem because he's scared to talk to me about the rent that he owes and he hasn't paid.
In Texas, or through our leases, it has to be in writing.
Yeah.
And it has to be, sent to us and done the right way.
The requests.
You're right. That's right. Maintenance requests have to be in writing.
And we of course will happily honor them if received verbally, but if it becomes a contentious situation, if someone doesn't have documentation that they sent us a repair request in writing, they're not going to get the benefit of that if they're trying to claim that the landlord's in default.
Yeah. So if someone calls in, we put it in writing, so to speak.
We do for our own internal purposes, but you couldn't defend that as a tenant in court.
True.
But yeah, I mean, and of course, we would attempt to gain entry to the house and do all kinds of things, but there's a lot that can happen to a house in gosh, a weekend, let alone a month of not paying rent and not communicating and not telling us that there's a pipe that's leaking behind where the shower connects, the shower head connects, and people
don't realize that leaks are emergencies. Water can do a lot of damage in the wrong spot of a house.
I always tell people that's one of the only things that I'll actually dispatch somebody for in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Like if you call me and tell me your house is burning down, I'll just tell you to call 911 and I'll see you in the morning. But if you tell me there's a water leak, like I or a member of my team is getting out of bed and on their way or helping you figure out how to shut it off, and we'll be there first thing in the morning. But if you're like, hey, I don't have a clue, I don't know what's going on, this pipe is broken, I can't turn it off, like we're there.
Yeah,
we're there.
I've done it.
Yeah,
you called me and said, hey,
go do this,
go here.
Yeah. And that is, I mean, I'm sure something else happens that we treat it similarly, but that is about the most emergent situation. And when someone lets it go in a house unaddressed, then they blame the landlord for a condition they didn't report.
Yeah.
And the judge is not an idiot. This is not the first time someone's tried to say they didn't pay their rent because there was mold, quote unquote.
Right.
There's a lot of mildew in the world. I don't know how much mold there is. But anyway, all right. Well, enough of that jabberjawing there. So what would you have bought that house as a rental house today? Like if the price was the same and whatnot, would you buy it today as a rental house?
I mean, assuming that it's been 2.5 years, so it would have gone up, by 2.5%, 3% a year. But I think so. I wish I would have known more details about it. I wish I would have known, kind of break it down and had a, what Rentalizer does for us, and a 5 or a 10 year analysis of it.
Yeah. And
a better idea of what it's going to cost me and all that. Obviously, evictions are not forecasted. They are kind of a odd one-off scenario, and we do everything we can to avoid them. And like you said, 9 out of 10 times when we send eviction letters, they don't get evicted.
Right.
Shoot, 99 out of 100 times.
I think it's more than fewer than 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
Or
more than 9 out of 10.
More than 9 out of 10 stay. Yeah. It's just sometimes a wake-up call.
But yeah, I think I would have. It's a good area. It's a good house, and we since she moved out, and there was actually a period of time after she moved out and the dust settled and everything that I moved in for a few months, and we decided to go ahead and renovate it. And I mean, my dad and I tore it up, and we needed to, and it needed it. I will say that if I were to go back in time, knowing what I know now, I would have bought it and I would have put more money into it. And I would have done more than just a cosmetic renovation, so to speak, or, just the bare essentials. I would have gone in and probably redone some floors or something like that.
Do you think
updated kitchens?
Do you think that would be largely driven by your ability now to do a CMA and to know what the homes in the market look like and what they're renting for?
Yeah, I think you have to stay relevant for sure. But I also I'm not scared of those projects anymore. I've done them and I've gone through it both on my homes, and I've had to deal with insurance claims and that sort of stuff on accidents. You were alluding to the leak. We had one where a toilet supply line busted, and the owners weren't home.
Oh yeah.
And I remember she called me, and it was like 7:30 or 8. I think it was a Thursday or a Friday, and I was probably on the golf course. And
likely.
Yeah, it was after hours, so yes. And we had to go over there that night, and she's like, I opened up the door and water just rushed out. There's probably 2 or 3 inches of water in the house. So their water bill, and it, like, these are unforeseen. You can't do anything to stop. I mean,
no, this is why we have insurance.
Right. And so I've had to do that. I've renovated homes. I've done maintenance issues and requests and that sort of stuff. So I'm not afraid to do it. But yes, I think you have to have a relevant house, because if you don't, you're not going to get what you can for it.
That's right. And you know, I don't want to. I don't really want to go into a demo right now of Rentalizer, but you know, I think that, you know, our software Rentalizer is something that will help you or anybody to be grabbing the right house.
Yeah. Without going into it, you can add a renovation cost, but you can also change the lease price for it, because when you update a kitchen, it's probably going to rent for more. So
just because the software tells you it's going to rent for $1,900, but you realize that all the houses that have stainless appliances and granite countertops and are getting $2,050 or $2,100 or something, you can say, hey, I spent $10,000, but I'm now getting $200 more per month.
Over the course of, I don't know, 5 years.
Yeah, that's
10 years.
I'll take that.
Yeah. $2,400 a year more.
Yeah.
So
I like 23% returns or whatever that turns out to be.
That would be a good one.
Yeah.
Which
24%.
Rentalizer
2,400 out of 10,000.
Yeah.
20%.
So yeah, I would do it again. I would do a lot of things different. I would definitely do background checks. I would definitely make sure I had the right paperwork in line.
Well, so I think there's a punchline here. The moral of the story is, in summation, Cole, in you know, a couple of minutes or less, tell me, if you were not even a property manager, let's say you had just hired me from the day one, you said, Morgan, I bought this house, let's turn it into a rental. How do you think life would be different in that house? It
would be, so I would have paid a commission.
Okay.
But I would have been collecting more rent.
And you rented it for $1,300.
Rented it for $1,300.
And you think it would have been worth $1,500?
Yeah, call it $1,500. Call it, yeah, $1,500 for.
Would you have spent more? Would I have told you to spend money renovating it?
Probably. I think you would have said, make sure everything's working.
Yeah.
I don't think we would have had the water heater issue right out of the gate.
Yeah.
I think you may have said it probably would be a good idea to update the stove in the kitchen and the dishwasher. Maybe not the dishwasher. That one was all right.
Okay.
Stove probably could have been replaced, needed to,
Yeah. Does it have a washer and dryer? Did it come with a washer and dryer?
It did not.
Okay. And you didn't put one in there for her?
I did not. No.
Okay.
No.
You never know if somebody's going to want that or not.
Well, again, if you can spend $1,000 on a washer and dryer but get $25 more or $50 more a month,
yeah, then it's awesome.
It's all in the numbers, and Rentalizer can tell you that.
So I mean, moral of the story here though is you would have paid a commission.
I would have paid a commission.
But you would have been getting
would have collected more rent.
Would have collected more rent
on a monthly basis.
We would have got the right tenant in there,
and just in general.
So you wouldn't be $3,000 in the hole for having a bad tenant.
Correct.
You'd be plus $2,400 for a year, which is now we're at $5,400. So let's peel a $1,500 commission off of that. Now we're at $3,900. You'd be plus $3,900 sitting in that chair right now if you had a property manager. And if you had been paying a property management fee that whole time, let's call it another $1,450. You're still $39. What is that? $1,400 ahead.
25.
Gosh.
2,500. But let's not forget about the free month I just gave her.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one.
There's another.
So let's go 1,500 the other way.
Yeah,
you're $3,000 better off. And all you did was you had a professional pricing the house, and you had a professional choosing a tenant, and you had a professional enforcing the lease
managing
rules and managing it.
Yeah.
You lost money by trying to save money.
I lost money. I lost time. I wouldn't have had to deal with any of it. Again, I'm not part of Brightline in this scenario, so I'm not having to do anything with it. You guys are collecting the rent for us. You guys are going to court for us if needed. You are handling any maintenance expense, or not expense, any maintenance logistics of it. And then you call me and you say, we had an AC issue there. She wasn't changing the filter.
Yeah.
And we sent the guy out. I think it was $795 is what it ended up costing me. out of my pocket. And, you guys would have been able to enforce the fact that it was a tenant responsibility to change the filter, and we have proof that you didn't.
Yep.
So this $795 is going on your tab and not mine. So add that to the total. So now we're up to, I don't know, 300.
Tell them what would happen if they didn't pay that $795 when they paid their $1,000 rent.
Oh, they would have gotten evicted because they did pay that $795. They did not pay their rent.
Ding, 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 ding.
So,
all right. Well, I think that's a good. I think that's a good summary, and I think that's a good note to end on.
Yeah.
So, thanks for co-hosting your own guest appearance here with me today, Cole. Yeah. And looking forward to shooting some more of these Brightline podcasts with you, where we're going to talk about, we'll talk property management, but we're also really going to talk about investment real estate, and we're going to talk about how to find good houses, how to buy good houses, how to acquire them, how to finance them, why you should own a house. We're going to talk to some of the different people that provide you the services that you need either to buy or to own a house, mortgage brokers, insurance agents.
We have contacts for every avenue of real estate that there is.
You bet. And we hope to have them all on the show.
Yeah. And we're going to do it. We're going to try to do it once a week.
Yep.
That's the goal. So
we may get a little feisty and do 5 in 1 week. I don't know, but it's going to be a weekly gig.
So your
weekly gig. So
subscribe.
Yeah, subscribe for sure. Hit that. What do they say?
Smash that subscribe.
Smash
button.
that subscribe button. I don't like saying that.
Yeah.
But okay. Well, be sure and like and subscribe, and we'll catch you next week.
All right.